small mountain of colorful board game boxes. There are numerous types of games for all ages. A lot of shelf space seems to be taken up by Wirral-related merchandise.
Wonderful choice, sir. A wholesome family game.
In your hands, you hold a brand new copy of the game, Suzerainty. It's snugly wrapped in a skin of plastic. The cover features a charming illustration depicting a mass of grinning laborers loading goods onto a ship, while a richly dressed administrator oversees their work. The exact location and time period are left deliberately vague, but it's clearly meant to represent the economic relationship between the Revacholian suzerainty and its many vassals. The box has a nice heft to it. You hear the rattle of individual wooden tokens and feel their weight shifting back and forth. Even before you open it, you can tell that this will be a meaty game of grand strategy and complex player interactions. The plastic wrap rips off as easily as a bodice in a tawdry historical romance. There's a hiss as the lid slides off. Inside, you find a thick, full-color rulebook and more than a dozen pouches of various wooden components. Savor that new board game smell. A mix of wood, paper, and ink, all wrapped in the sweet must of cardboard. Welcome to Suzerainty, a game of economic strategy for the whole family. The rulebook is sumptuously illustrated and thick as a Gradian novel. The colorful illustrations depict cheerful workers picking apricots, hauling marble sculptures out of crumbling temples, and harvesting a strange magenta-leafed plant. Everyone is smiling. You begin to suspect there may be a political agenda to this so-called family game. Only one way to find out. The instructions are opaque at first and introduce many concepts you're not familiar with. Fortunately, there are many diagrams and examples throughout. You soon figure out the basic conceit. Each player represents an administrator for the suzerain of Revachol. Your objective is to increase the suzerain's wealth and renown by accumulating victory points. That's where the suzerain's vassals come in. The game features 4 vassal nations, each one home to an economically important resource. Each turn, the player collects resources from vassals where they've placed workers. They may then rearrange their workers, fulfill contracts for coin and bonuses, or build structures back in Revachol. As you leaf through the pages, your eye catches on a sidebar labeled Advice for Beginners. Remember, there are many paths to victory in Suzerainty, but successful players will find one strategy and commit to it wholeheartedly. The actual scoring system appears infinitely complex, with a series of tables and appendices required to compute each player's final victory point total. You skip that part for now. You open up a number of pouches containing wooden tokens. There are also several punch boards with other cardboard components that will need to be punched out before you can play. Each cardboard token makes a satisfying ch as you pop it out. Soon, a neat pile of cardboard coins and counters has accumulated before you.
What? You're not going to offer to let me punch any of them out?
In addition to the worker and building tokens used by each player, there are also several piles of colorful resource tokens. each representing one of the game's 4 principal resources. From the Empire of Safre, orange apricot tokens. From Ilmarat, the ancestral name of Ilmara, grey marble block tokens. From the Semenine Islands, white sacks of sugar tokens. And from Supramuindi and Sarah Maritza, magenta tokens for unprocessed cocaine leaves.
Oh, those are nice.
You hold the open game box before you. The lieutenant looks over the rulebook before he sees something that makes his eyes go wide.
Holy shit. The average playing time for this game is 1 to 6 hours. I'm not sure we can afford to set aside that kind of time for a game.
What is detective work if not an elaborate game? You need logical inference, attention to detail, the ability to analyze your opponent's motives.
I do feel like my thinking has become somewhat rigid. Maybe a little diversion to keep the mind limber is just what's in order.
See? He's doing the hard work himself. All he needed was a little nudge.
Alright, you've convinced me. How do we play?
You explain the basic setup procedures to the lieutenant, who seems to be a quick study. You each take your bag of tokens and counters and unfold the board between you. In the center is the crown of Revachon. Radiating outward are her colorful vessels, each one supplying some raw material desired by the suzerain. Apricots from Safre, archaeological treasures from Ilmarat, sugars from the Semenine Islands, and magenta cocaine from Supramuindi and Sarah Maritza. There's also a neat little log to keep track of your progress in case you need to put the game away and return to it later. The lieutenant goes first. He draws a contract card and moves several of his workers to the Safre territory of the board, and the others to the Semenine Islands.
Alright, detective, your turn.
You have a few options available to you. Will you try to fulfill contracts right away, or rearrange your workers to maximize production on future turns? Remember what the rulebook said. You'll want to choose a strategy early on and stay committed to it. What is the very beginning of the game? Your workers haven't even done any work yet. That's more like it. You produce a handful of archaeological treasures and a smattering of other resources. Meanwhile, the lieutenant spends 2 of his sugar and 1 of his apricot tokens to complete his contract card. He is rewarded with 4 coins and a round wooden token that he places in the center of the board.
That's a market. It's worth 2 victory points. Don't worry, it was mostly just luck. You'll earn some points soon enough. Points are nothing. They don't exist. They're just an arbitrary convention that games use to reward or punish players for certain behaviors. There are some paranoid types who believe the moral intern keeps detailed score sheets for everyone in the Real Belt, but that's obviously nonsense. Otherwise, no. There are no points, just your actions and the consequences of those actions. That's just the way it is. Now, I believe it's your turn.
Glancing over the board, you see several possible strategies. Pressing more workers into service would increase your economic output and help you to survive a possible conflict with the lieutenant. Or you could ignore your labor supply and focus on fulfilling contracts for points and resources. Those aren't your only options. You could also show your workers how much you appreciate them by investing some of that wealth in them. After all, they're the ones producing wealth for the suzerain. Well, sure, you can do that. It's just not a terribly effective strategy, but then it's up to you.
That's up to you, detective. But remember, the objective of the game is to earn victory points for the suzerain. You should probably pick one strategy and stick to it. Trying to do a little of everything is usually a bad idea. The workers are just there to produce raw resources. You're not supposed to worry about them too much.
The lieutenant assumes you're playing by the rules as written. But what's the point of playing if you can't make your own choices? Using your powers of persuasion, you convince more workers to join your cause. After several turns, your worker tokens greatly outnumber the lieutenants. A vast army of expendable labor is at your command.
Too bad investing in your workers just isn't worth many points. Take a look at the scoring tables in the back. You see in Table 8C that investing in territorial infrastructure multiplies your final victory point total by 1, which is to say not at all. Whereas erecting monuments in Revachol gives you a multiplier of 5. Yes, precisely.
Nonsense. Remember what the lieutenant said. If points are arbitrary, who cares about winning? You should reject their system and just play how you want. Now it's the lieutenant's turn to respond. He moves aggressively onto the Safre territory. Soon, his workers are producing a steady supply of extremely valuable apricots. For several turns, you struggle to respond to the lieutenant's burgeoning apricot empire. Eventually, you relocate the majority of your workers to Supremawindi and Saramaritsa, where they begin producing a bumper crop of cocaine tokens. You draw a new contract card. According to the text, there's an aristocrat willing to trade a large supply of cocaine for a number of coins and access to a rare bonus. Amplified music worth 7 victory points. You know, this isn't unlike the situation the historical Revacholian suzerainty faced in Safre in the middle of the last century. Well, the suzerain was looking for new markets for all the cocaine it was producing, and it settled on Safre. By introducing cocaine into Safre under exclusive contract, the suzerain created an extremely valuable captive market for an extremely addictive product. If you could somehow get the lieutenant's workers addicted to your cocaine, you could not only make them less productive, you would also force the lieutenant to pay you for your cocaine tokens each turn. Yes, you can. It's right there in the rules. You've reached a critical strategic juncture. How do you respond to the lieutenant's aggression? It takes several turns, but you slowly begin accumulating the cocaine necessary to complete the contract. When you do, it practically rains cardboard coins on your side. Despite your trash talking, the lieutenant still has a formidable store of coins and resources. The end game is upon you. How will you spend the vast resources you've acquired for the glory of the suzerain? Flipping through the manual, you find the most expensive structure in the game, the Revacholian Victory Column, worth 12 victory points. If you can successfully build it, victory will be all but assured. Alternatively, you could try launching a trade war to crush the lieutenant's economy, or you could blow all that money on a public education system for your worker tokens. The choice is yours. Building the ultimate structure requires diligent economic planning, which you completely fail to do. Rather than build a glorious monument to Revachel's economic superiority, you have to settle for a handful of post offices and school for the blind.
A risky gambit, detective. Sorry it didn't pay off. That might have helped, yes. Now, let's tally up the scores, shall we?
Computing the final scores is almost a game unto itself. You each spend an inordinate amount of time making stacks of coins, consulting tables, and struggling with basic addition and multiplication. After double, then triple checking your maths, you have your final score. 15 victory points. The suzerain will not be impressed.
I've got 26 points. Don't be glum, detective. There's always next time. Figuratively, I mean. There's no way we have time to play this game again. Now, let's clean up and get back to work.
You hold the open game box before you. The machine is dead and silent. It needs serious maintenance before anyone can play again. The machine is dead and silent. It needs serious maintenance before anyone can play again. Shelves filled to the brim with crime novels featuring the supposedly stalwart Vespertine detective, Dick Mullen.
Of course. Such violence and immorality. I mean, enjoy.
In your hand, you hold Dick Mullen and the mistaken identity. The brittle paperback feels fragile to the touch. The cover features a pastiche of different scenes. In the foreground, a man in a dark overcoat clutches a pistol to his chest. Rising up behind him are two silhouettes wrapped in a passionate embrace. The tagline reads, "Detective Dick Mullen must prove his innocence after an old friend is murdered by someone who looks just like Dick Mullen." That seems to sum up the premise nicely.
Are you really reading that, detective? Well, you won't find it in there. Those books are much more about ravishing dames and gunplay than real police work.
The story opens with a knock at the door. Detective Dick Mullen is greeted by an old friend, Charlie Spillane, who's come to Mullen to ask a favor on this dark and cold night. Spillane needs Mullen to drive him in from Vesper to a small town along the Elysium coast. Despite his friend's apparent agitation, Mullen does as he's asked, then returns home where he passes out drunk, as he does most nights. 2 days later, Mullen is arrested by the Vesper police and charged with the murder of Charlie Spillane. At his interrogation, Mullen learns that Charlie Spillane was shot in a bar in the very town Mullen dropped him off in by a man matching Mullen's description. Desperate to clear his name, Mullen manages to convince the Vesper police to release him for 3 days so that Mullen may solve his friend's murder and prove his innocence. Of course, Mullen didn't do it. That's the whole premise of the book. Anyway, Mullen returns to the seaside bar where Spillane was murdered and meets a beautiful, mysterious woman named Diana Denerva. Denerve reveals that she was Spillane's lover and that he was mixed up with a local amphetamine smuggling operation. As soon as Mullen begins pulling at strings, the whole conspiracy begins to unravel. Not only is the local police captain in on the amphetamine ring, so is the son of a powerful politician and a strung-out art collector named Torvald, each of whom has his own reasons for wanting Spillane dead. Outwardly, the old police captain is a real law and order crypto-fascist, a barrel-chested man who's beaten his share of suspects to pulp. But he's also dirty and increasingly paranoid that someone's going to expose his role in the drug ring. He would certainly have the motive and the means, but the captain walks with a noticeable limp from an old war injury. Is it possible that he was able to conceal it long enough to commit the murder? A typical privileged twat. In all likelihood, he's just in over his head. He does bear a personal grudge against Spillane, though, a former prosecutor who nearly brought down his father's administration. kid doesn't exactly have Dick Mullen's manly build, but he is the correct height, and while interrogating him at his home, Mullen did notice a certain overcoat that looks suspiciously like his own. Torvald, the art collector, is a strung-out mess. Frankly, it's hard to imagine him holding a pistol steady enough to actually hit someone, let alone plug them 3 times in the chest the way Spillane got did. That said, Torvald and Spillane have a long history, and while interrogating him, Mullen discovers that Torvald was once involved with Diana Deneuve. Could it be that this is all over a sordid love triangle? One evening, Diana Deneuve comes to Mullen's hostel room in tears. The two of them drink half a bottle of vodka, and soon they're seeking comfort in each other's arms. As the two lovers share a post-coital cigarette, Diana Deneuve turns to Mullen and says, "By the way, Dick, there was something else I meant to tell you. Always aim for the center of mass." Whatever it is, Mullen never hears the words. A blow to the base of his skull knocks him out cold instantly. When Mullen comes to, Deneuve is dead on the hostel bed next to him. To make matters worse, his clothes are covered with her blood. Mullen trashes his blood-stained clothes and flees the hostel, knowing it's only a matter of hours before the cops discover Deneuve's body, if they haven't been tipped off already. The heat is on. If Dick Mullen can't solve both murders before the cops catch up to him, he's going away for life. Can you solve the case before the cops close in? What is it, detective? It's a dangerous line of work, but somebody has to do it. That's why Dick Mullen never lets anyone get too close. There was never a time when he wasn't a detective. He was born a detective. For a moment, you cease to read the story on the page and see the book for what it is. A collection of brittle, cheaply printed pages held together by glue made from the hooves of horses. From nowhere, you hear the screech of sneakers on a waxed floor, and you feel the burn of rope against your hands. Are these figments of some other life? You won't find the answers you're looking for here, in other words. There was never a time when he wasn't a detective. He was born a detective. Dick Mullen was made to crack skulls and solve cases. It's who he is. He could no more stop being a detective than a tiger could cease to be a predator in the night. You're no tiger though, Harry. You're a man. It's your curse to have to choose. For a moment, you cease to read the story on the page and see the book for what it is. A collection of brittle, cheaply printed pages held together by glue made from the hooves of horses. From nowhere, you hear the screech of sneakers on a waxed floor, and you feel the burn of rope against your hands. Are these figments of some other life? You won't find the answers you're looking for here, in other words. Is it really so evil, detective? Like what? Do you even have those? Just make sure you don't lose him. You'll not find another like him. But then, what does this book know? It's just a poorly made piece of pulp garbage made to be consumed and discarded. So, who did it, detective? Who killed Charlie Spillane and Deanna Deneuve? Have you been paying attention at all? It wasn't Mullen. It was an imposter. Now go on. Find out who really did it. You begin furiously flipping through pages. Even as you know these books follow a series of well-worn tropes, you find yourself completely engrossed. You're turning pages so fast, you don't even notice the ancient spine coming unglued. You try to grab the pages as they come loose, but your fingers aren't quick enough. They're gone. Dozens of pages scatter across the floor. The last fifth or so of the book seems to have been lost. It's possible that you could gather and reassemble the pages, but it would take way too long.
Ah, yes. The problem with mass-market paperbacks. They are not made to last. Perhaps this is a sign that you should get back to solving your own murder, huh, detective?
In your hand, you hold 4/5 of Dick Mullen and the mistaken identity. The bathroom mirror has been wiped completely clean. You see the reflection of yourself in the mirror, the expression fixed to your clean-shaven face. You're still not accustomed to it. Still not happening. It won't come off that easy. You hear someone walking around inside, rearranging the furniture. The number on the panel says 10. A poor communard from the looks of it. The room is barely bigger than a closet.
Do I have to open the door? Did you have a warrant? I'm not obligated to open the door if you don't have a warrant.
Let's go. We don't have a reason to get inside that apartment.
It's generally easier to do things if you have literally. The aging alcoholic is still there, breathing. This door is made of metal and appears to be reinforced. Someone here really values their security. No one answers.
Let's go. There's nothing to do here for us anymore.
Man, you're like bleeding now. Reality's really messed you up.
He breathes in deeply, preparing his recitation.
The tale I'm about to tell you is an urban legend, There are many variations on...
Are you telling the story of the...
Shut the fuck up, Rosemary.
The streets are warmed in the harbor's dark.
Our heroine what she doesn't know is that her a headless, rumored to be searching for... If I hadn't lost Gertrude Head...
Tell him about...
Fuck, Rose. What?
I read the case.
Right. The wind...
Two women.
The women are... When she... But there... Ula makes her body is never recovered.
Naturally, during the investigation... No, not a print.
Man. Anyway, that's the story of the headless Fallen Rider. Pretty... No one knows.
He won't, though.
Aye. I saw him one night when I was right shit-faced.
Wonderful. Not much, but it will do. This last one is the most Martinet story I've ever heard. I've never heard it mentioned outside of here. At first, I thought it was a joke, to be honest. But I've been on the coast 8, 9 months now, and in that time I've seen at least 3 expeditions come through, searching for something.
A shovel hits the sand somewhere behind the reeds, near an abandoned construction yard. The young men look over their shoulders suspiciously. The sound of their digging seems loud in the sudden silence.
Magic animals? No, man, this is serious stuff. No, Tequila. Most people already know where they live. It's guys like you and me that are the exceptions. Hey, hey! Fuck you, Tequila. All kinds. I've seen archaeologists, gangsters, even a bunch of ad agency types. I'm telling you, Tequila, this thing's got a pull on certain kinds of people. You know, obsessive types. People with predilections. Some of those expeditions come back after a week or so, looking haggard and dejected. Others don't return at all. The first time I saw one of these expeditions, I thought they were fucking with me. There was no way it could be true. It was just too high concept, even for me. I'm not even sure I should be telling you this story, to be perfectly honest. You're in a fragile state, and it might be too much for you to handle. Okay, fine, I'll tell you. But I'm warning you, it's pretty out there. Our story begins at a legendary design studio, right here in Martinez. There was this designer. His exact name is lost to history, but in life, he was a legend. Made it big in Aranya, where he did some real pioneering work on grotesque and sans serif typography. A fucking genius, man. That is, if he even existed. Who knows? It's an urban legend, after all. Anyway, sometime later he started his own personal studio here in Martinez. And that's when he started working on some really wild stuff. I'm talking some glass-smooth, forward-looking design language, the kind of thing that would totally overthrow the old regime, design-wise.
A paradigm-shattering revolutionary?
But then, something turned. You see, it's widely known that nose candy and pioneer graphic design work go hand in hand. You know Tequila, nose candy, the White Railroad, party powder.
The kids on the streets also call it Snow Day.
Or Emalan gold. For the plateau on which most of the world's supply is grown and harvested, typically by slave labor.
Sinus salt, the White Knight.
Can't see, for its popularity among the aristocratic class of the prior century.
Along with a number of more banal street names. Blow, of course, but also flake, powder, pearl. Really, anything that's white will work. He's talking about cocaine, baby.
Shit yeah, Tequila. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got to understand, the work this guy was doing was so high concept that regular amounts of cocaine just weren't cutting it. By the end, they were bringing it in by the lorry load. Now, as you might imagine, snorting that much cocaine can't be healthy for a regular human, right?
Wrong. Do it all the time. All day, baby.
Hey, Tequila, pay attention. The story goes that one day he was balls deep in work on what he thought would be his pièce de résistance, an advert so minimal it contained neither text nor images, just pure white. Apparently the idea was too high concept even for this genius. He dropped dead right at his desk before he could finish. His last words are recorded to have been, "It's as white as a blizzard of cocaine." But the story doesn't end there. Supposedly, when they performed the autopsy, the coroner discovered nearly 1/4 kilo of coke jammed into his nasal cavity.
That's almost certainly anatomically impossible. Wrong again, nerd. Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right. 250 grams of blow had accumulated in there over the years. We're talking high-grade Saramaritsian pure. Not that cut-rate shit your grandma does. There are those who believe the designer was buried with this quarter key of nose candy still lodged in his sinuses. That's what those expeditions are looking for.
The cocaine skull.
The cocaine skull. No. Wow! Here's the kicker. This designer, this lead designer of a world-famous design studio, was born in Martinez. A local boy, Martin Martinez. That's why he brought his studio here, back to where it all began. And that's why they buried him here, too. Perhaps right under Ab's pipe there. Or probably further down the coast, or in some yard in Martinez proper. A hidden mausoleum, no one knows exactly.
No, my grandma always told me his grave lay somewhere on the islets on the bay.
This is ludicrous and physically impossible. Sinuses can contain that amount of anything.
My only question is, where does one get a shovel?
The archaeologists say they want to put it in a museum, the gangsters say they want to sell it on the black market, and the ad agency guys say they're seeking inspiration.
Bullshit. They just want to snort it. But you could beat them to it, Harry. You could snort the magic skull cocaine instead.
I'm pretty sure they all just want to snort it, though.
And why wouldn't they, eh? Sounds like right strong stuff.
Don't listen to him or his grandma. He's just making things up.
No, my grandma told me. I've heard other people say it too. That it's underwater. Or no, maybe it was the storm sewers.
Or maybe it's in the air, or in an ancient state pyramid offshore.
In a pyramid? Now that would be something.
They're pretty vague about it in general. The gangsters like to claim they're looking for the grave of a friend, with picks and shovels. The archaeologists act all official about it, saying they're conducting serious research. Honestly, I think they're not really scientists, just rich. The junkies, for some reason, are pretty upfront about it. They just say they're looking to snort some blow out of a dead man's nasal cavity.
Honest men on an honest quest. You should join them.
By now, I'd say I know about as much about it as anyone on the coast. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on just a minute. Finding it right now is literally impossible.
What?
For one, the way is blocked by that big lorry that says Delta Logistics Company on the side. You definitely have to search the area behind that lorry too, yet it is impassable. And second, outfitting an expedition like that is expensive. It'd have to be a big production to do the cocaine skull justice. You need new gear, people who know what they're doing, all kinds of provisions. It's just not feasible within the economic and temporal frame of our current setup. Matter of fact, unless a bunch of money just falls out of the sky, we might never know what's up with that skull.
I have to agree. We barely have what we need to solve the case we've got now. We can't afford to run around chasing after quasi-mythical pieces of drug paraphernalia. Besides, it would look extremely bad for the RCM to be caught up in something that has the word cocaine writ large on it. The PR is tricky on this.
Wait, maybe there's another way. Maybe up around the coast? Don't give up now.
Yeah, well, that's the reality situation for you. Who knows, though? Maybe someday we'll get our chance. Not that I can think of, currently. That might be the case, yes.
The suzerainty box is heavy and slightly awkward in your hands. You give it a light shake and feel the pieces shift around inside. Welcome to suzerainty. The instruction, you soon figure out the basic conceit. Each player represents, you hold the open game box before you.
The legend returns. You know the dance. Smokable smokes, pissable pilsner. Drink it, then convert it to piss. And there's spirits and speed too.
Danko. Danko.
There's no waking him from his stupor. His mind is elsewhere. A metal payphone under a yellow plastic dome. There's a bitter, caustic taste on the tip of your tongue as you look at the handset. You dial the number again, as you've done many times. You remember it well now. 001 41 44 47 11 17 361 451 67 451 451. Calling, 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 and calling for who knows how long, but no one answers. You need to insert more money to call again. The cold cold metal is hard and your knuckles bleed.
That's enough now, officer.
It didn't give you any fun for that money. Your hand is swelling up.
Officer, that's enough. Let's return to work.
It's over.